Hey everybody, this is Couch Report. Thanks for joining. I'm RJ. I'm here with my co-host Felicia D'Ambrosio. Hi.
Hi RJ.
And I'm here with the editor-in-chief of Relix, Mike Greenhouse.
Welcome.
We are in the Relix offices. There are many rock and roll memorabilia photos everywhere in here, and it's a pretty special place to be, just a couple blocks from the garden.
Yeah, this is a wonderland. I want to look at everything.
my other job besides editor-in-chief is the curator of Pete's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum here, so there's lots of good memories of his various ventures into the live music world.
It is a serious museum. So we're going to talk a little bit about last night's show, the 1228 show, of course, and we have a couple special guests who we're going to talk with in a few minutes, Tom Marshall and the Dude of Life. We're going to talk with them about songwriting and all that, and they're also going to play music, so stay tuned for that. But I guess let's start. I didn't get to see last night's show, so how was it?
It was hot.
Sort of came out of the gate pretty serious and pretty high energy, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I was personally not at Halloween, but I can't imagine if there's ever been a Phish song where the second time it was played, like a new song, so many people were singing every single word, and kind of those hashtagable phrases were just echoing throughout the garden. But for both the Halloween songs they played, that was definitely the case, which I think both says something about the material and the way it was, debuted and rolled out. That's
cool. There were some Casvad Vox doubters out there after Halloween. I'm not going to name any names, even though some of them might be in this room. But are people coming around now that they've brought and they jammed out both of those Casvad Vox tunes, right?
Yeah, I thought the "We Have Come to Outlive Our Brains" was really strong opener, and definitely I had a feeling we were going to get a Halloween opener last night just because it's the newest material. But I enjoyed it thoroughly. The jam was great, and everybody was really into it. Like Mike said, it really resonated with the crowd. The final hurrah, I think, was not as exciting as the other one. The song is not as strong in the song structure, but the jam was really good, and everybody was grooving, so yeah, looked good.
It seems like sometimes the 1228 shows are like a little bit of a warm-up, or they're shaking off rust or whatever, but it didn't seem like that based on what I listened to this morning. Did it feel like that? Did it feel different from some of the other kind of openers of these runs?
Well, actually, I was thinking about it because this is the 20th anniversary of Phish's first 4-night run at MSG, which was their first 4-night run at a big indoor arena ever. And at that point, that felt very historic. I mean, in the past, holiday runs had kind of built from different venues, and there's different energy and whatnot as kind of the band and the fans move around the Northeast or the Mid-Atlantic region. But Now 4-night runs, it feels almost kind of quaint after doing 17 shows at the Garden last year and other kind of extended runs, whether it's in Vegas and elsewhere. So I feel like there's a little bit more of a familiarity, and the band could kind of move in very gradually into the song catalog and dust off some stuff. I thought some of the ballads last night, like "If I Could," which was recently revived, and the Billy Breves Blob with "Steep and Swept Away" was great, and it was really nice to kind of see that kind of more melodic energy juxtaposed with the prog rock stuff from Halloween.
That's cool. That's a good point. What were some of your highlights in terms of the actual jamming and stuff? Mike, do you have a couple highlights from last night?
I thought that the Shade was great. I thought Bathtub Gin Energy was awesome. I think some of there's one really great segue in the first set, and then the second set was pretty seamless, which was really exciting.
What about you, Felicia?
The Meat was a huge highlight, I think, for most people.
Yeah.
The first set, and I thought the Gin was great, really good, and the Ghost was not long, but went up somewhere and was snappy.
Nice. And it seems like people, based on what I've read and what people are saying, the lighting, like Kuroda, somehow just keeps getting more creative and better with them.
Yeah.
Even though, like, I last saw them in Vegas, I thought it was awesome, but apparently it keeps getting better. But maybe here it's different too at MSG.
There was one effect where I was sitting, I could see it was almost like they were making like a circus ring in the middle of the arena, and it was really cool way to kind of both illuminate the crowd and also just like make the entire arena feel like it's being lit by Kuroda, not just the band and not just the backdrop behind them.
Awesome.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe Chris Kuroda is the LD for Madison Square Garden, and they installed those ceiling lights for him for the dozen, which they still are there and were in use last night. So there's like just a complete effect of the Kuroda power happening in the Garden, and this rig is like the ultimate rig. Like, it's the best one ever, and everybody is just inside it. It's really cool.
Did you guys see the time-lapse thing that they put out?
Yeah.
Like, you just watching it move, like, and how much it expanded and contracted. I mean, it's wild.
Yeah.
It is like the ultimate
epic cure.
Seems like the ultimate light rig.
Yeah.
Mike, what's your take on sort of 2018 overall, like where Phish is and has been? Do you have any thoughts on that? Just because I think there was sort of talk about it, it's kind of up and down summer and then a really strong fall. Do you see that, or do you have any other thoughts on sort of where they are at this point?
Yeah, well, I think this year is interesting because, I mean, obviously Curveball unfortunately did not happen, but this was the first year in a very long time, I mean, maybe, since they've returned, where they had 3 distinct kind of theatrical events on the books. They had Halloween, New Year's, and a festival, which obviously has a lot of conceptual planning going into that. And I think that those 3 events kind of were the anchors to some of the creativity you see, whether it's the new songs, obviously, as we talked about before, kind of turning the Garden a little bit more into like a home base with the lighting rig and the sound and whatnot. I think the fall tour, everyone said was fantastic. I always loved those, old school Northeast swings. I was at the Albany shows, and it is always great to see them kind of on their home court in that sense. And as I said before, the new songs have really, have become classics already. And this is, some of these songs have only been played once already, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah. And I guess, Felicia, what's your take on 2018? We've talked about it on other Couch Reports and in other ways, but do you have any thoughts after last night and sort of everything you've seen this year?
I mean, I have enjoyed highlights from all of the tours and the segments of the year. Curveball was obviously a huge disappointment, I think, for everybody, and as a result, there was a lot of sort of renewed energy at Dick's and on Fall Tour. It felt like we all had something to prove to ourselves and each other, and it was really, the energy really changed after that, which is sounds dumb, but I really, it was very apparent to me.
Did we do a good job as fans?
Yeah, I feel like the band needed us to be there for them, and we brought it back to make sure, we're not mad, we're a little traumatized, but it's okay. We got through it, and we got through it together. I didn't feel right after Curveball until I got onto the field at Dick's, and I heard Free in my body, and then I was like, oh, I'm okay now. My heart grew back. And that is what we were all kind of doing on the Fall Tour, and it was really, it felt good. It was a great run.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I think the other thread, too, is, Trey did those solo acoustic shows in both the spring and the fall, and I think you could see a lot of influence on the set list and some of the songs that have been revived, and just kind of his approach to the canon in a way that, maybe it's a thread that's parallel to the Phish set list in the last year, but has definitely made an impact. Yeah,
that's a good point. Those acoustic shows were treasure troves of stories and information, but also he's unearthing a lot of old songs. That and the Ask Trey segments on Sirius,
which are great.
We've gotten a lot of new info over the past couple months. So MSG, like we said, is just a couple blocks from here, and I think the first show that Phish played there was in '94, 12:30.
Yeah, 12:30, 90.
So since then, it played 70 shows or something.
I think it's 57.
Yeah, yesterday was 57.
It's an outrageous number of shows to play in one building. Do you guys think that it's after the Baker's Dozen that every time they come here from now on it'll just be awesome because of the lights and the sound and the legacy and everything we've been talking about?
Yes.
Absolutely. I think it's always been awesome at the Garden. The Garden always felt like a home court. Even if you think about how many times they played, being 1.0 and 2.0, it's not that many considering how many times they've played since. But even at that point, it always felt like a special thing, especially because it was mostly on New Year's runs over the years, which are have a kind of a festive family feel to it. There's been so many theatrical moments, guests, many of whom will be part of our program today, actually, who have sat in over the years, and I think there's something about Madison Square Garden that it always. I'm not a musician, but from musicians I've talked to who have played there, there's something about it that makes it feel almost like a small club, both kind of the way that the seats are stacked around it and kind of the way it's, it's elevated above Penn Station, so there's kind of this bouncy feel to it, and there's something really special about that feels different than your generic arena in other cities.
It is the opposite of a generic arena.
Yeah, although I do miss the inner ring where you could kind of walk around inside. That was always great. Was
cool. Jaded veteran complain about the arena.
I think I heard some comments that it was that the venue was moving, the floor was moving. It often moves, right? That means that you're in the middle of a good show.
Yeah, feels alive.
It feels alive, yeah. So we'll hope for some more, bouncing tonight. Cool. So we're gonna wrap up this part, and we're gonna talk with Tom Marshall and the Dude of Life in a minute. And then they're going to play us some music, so stick around for a second.
Awesome. We are here in the Relix office with Tom Marshall and Steve Pollack, the Dude of Life, two of the longest-time Phish songwriters, and I actually understand you guys have a new song that you guys wrote together.
Yeah, I think we're going to, it's sort of a way that Steve and I figured out to talk to our friend Trey in a way that we don't often, get the chance to do. Sort of ask him a couple questions, very important questions. But there's sort of a story even behind that. We had, we wrote the song in G, and so at first we were going to call the song In G for T, but then there was a transcription error, and someone thought it was I'm G for T. And so instead we decided just to call it G for T.
That's awesome. And we'll hear that in a minute, which I guess is your Ask Trey Anything. I know it's been a big thing with the Sirius XM recently. And
everyone else gets a chance to ask Trey except us.
Yeah, well, you guys have been writing with Trey, for throughout his entire career, even before when he was in high school and college. And I know you guys both have kind of your own unique songwriting approaches, both with other collaborators and on your own. And I was wondering if you could start, maybe you, Tom, but give us a little background on how you kind of see the birthing cycle for your songs and the various stages they go through.
Yeah, I've always, I write way more songs than ever become songs, and so there's this process. One is just my own filter, like if I write something and it's terrible, then that doesn't see the light of day. But I write a song or write lyrics that sound good. I call it like birth number one. If it's on the page and I like it, then it's been born once. Then I give it to Trey and it turns into a song. That's its second birth, so to speak, but it takes three births to become a Phish song. Wow. That's like when the band likes it too, and so it's got to go through those three gauntlets to become a song.
Right, and you write a lot more than you're going to use, and of the songs that you write, some of them remain little saplings and don't go anywhere. Some of them die on the vine, but then once in a while, some of them become these California redwoods, and there's that mystery. You don't know which ones are going to blossom, and basically, there's the muse, the magic of it, and you just never can be sure. Like sometimes there's a song you think is going to be the big hit, and that goes nowhere. Other times, a song that you thought wasn't going to go very far suddenly becomes huge.
Right, it's that idea, like when they said in the English class, when an author writes a book, it's no longer their message. It's however people take it, and you never know which songs are going to become the classics. Those hashtagable phrases that you guys have coined so many of over the years and stuff like that, or yearbook quotes, and which ones kind of, as you said, will kind of die on the vine there.
This has all been wonderful. Yeah. Now I'm on my way.
Exactly. Now, as a Phish fan growing up, I see both your guys' last names in the liner notes of writing with Trey, and there was a few songs that had both of your names on it, and there was a lot of songs that had just you and Trey, or you and Trey. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys met as friends and how you guys kind of became songwriting collaborators, which I don't think was in that order, if I'm correct.
Right, it wasn't in that order. So Trey and I met in 8th grade at Princeton Day School in Princeton, New Jersey, and interestingly, right around you and I collaborated without knowing each other, which is weird. It's skipping a lot of the story, but that's worth talking about, is that Trey all of a sudden showed up, and this is later in college, with his song Antelope and a song Slave to the Traffic Light, which he and Steve had worked on.
I'd written the choruses for that. Trey and I had written the choruses for those two.
But I didn't know Steve, and Trey now is in Princeton, and Steve is somewhere else. And I showed up and did "Seen the City, Seen the Zoo," "Traffic Light Won't Let Me Through," and so I got lyric credit on your song.
And by the way, I lost a lot of royalty money.
Thanks, Tom. You're welcome. You're welcome.
But it's a great line.
And then the same thing in Antelope. I think it was like there was an open mic, and Trey had this part. He wanted something in, and he goes, "Sing," and the record was pressed. So it was
Marco.
Rai Rocco. Made up some silliness into the mic, and took a little bit more money out of your wallet.
It's okay. All you need is love.
But no, you guys, are obviously good friends now, and have actually written some songs together for for various things. Was there a moment when you guys kind of became friends outside of the Phish songwriting canon?
I mean, I remember, for a long time, we were like competitors, but friendly competition. Yeah. But then when it was India, when we were and soundboard, and suddenly we started getting drunk together, and we were hanging out together, and then the rest is history. Then we started hanging out all the time and creating together, and that was.
I remember Trey was really kind of happy that we finally got together.
Yeah.
Right? And it's sort of like that funny, you said, like the two girlfriend, like when your old girlfriend meets your new girlfriend, it's not necessarily a good thing. I think Trey was like, what are they going to say
when
about
two
it?
girlfriends get together and start talking about you.
Yeah.
It's kind of what it was.
Right. Yeah. Except not at all.
And I guess, not only for this song, but some of the other stuff you guys have done, you guys have your own approaches. Was there a moment when you were writing where you're like, this feels really natural because you have this kind of shared history of writing songs and experiences, even though you guys weren't maybe at shows together, you had so many.
Oh, absolutely. And there was so much
yeah.
crossover. We all had a lot of the same best friends, and it just, organically clicked. And suddenly, then we started working together on stuff, and then we took it to another level, I think.
Yeah, Steve and I have about probably 12 songs that have seen the light of day in some respects, maybe on the internet, but we always have this album idea in the back of our...
We definitely have plans. We're going to take it to that next level, like in a really top-notch way.
Yeah.
We're waiting to know what that next thing is. I mean, internet was one thing. We're waiting for the next thing.
You guys are really post-internet.
Yeah.
No, you've touched on this a little bit, Tom, but you guys met Trey at different points in your life and in his life, and just like I know from a lot of my friends from college and high school, you were listening to different things, you were watching different things, you had different influences, and there's been a lot of talk about kind of Phish's prog influence. And I know, Tom, when you were kind of coming through the ranks with Trey, that was really where your guys' head was. Talk a little bit about some of the music you guys were listening to that first bonded you.
Totally, yeah. Trey's and my first concert together, where we were both like, one of those concerts where the spirit moves you, so moves. We were both blown away by, it was King Crimson, with Robert Fripp, Adrian Belew, Bill Bruford, and Tony Levin. It was the Discipline Tour at this tiny place, Richardson Auditorium in Princeton. And Trey looked at me and he said, probably something profound about the music itself, but then he also said, I want to play here someday.
Yeah.
And he definitely said, with you. And I was like, yeah. We eventually did perform on that stage together.
Wow, amazing. Yeah,
that was cool. But yeah, so that was all King Crimson-y, Genesis-y, and yes. And then he went away to Taft in Connecticut, where he met this guy.
So at Taft, at first Trey was into Brand X, Genesis, and all the music we were just discussing. But then we had two really good friends of ours, Chris Cottrell and Rob Florence, and they were really into the Dead. And Trey and I started getting into the Dead at Taft, and that, of course, was when Trey really started playing guitar. And one thing led to another, and next thing you know, we're going to Dead shows. But we were very influenced by Lou Reed and David Bowie, and when Trey and I were in Europe, we went to see David Bowie together in Rotterdam, which is just amazing, and that whole David Bowie influence was really important to us as well.
Which is interesting too, is I feel like at that point, especially people were either like in the Dead camp or like the Bowie Lou Reed camp. There was as much crossover as there was today.
Yeah, we were hugely crossing over.
Do you have a favorite experience with Trey going to see Jerry and kind of being part of that world?
Absolutely. It was the Flynn Theater show, December 6, 1983. We were seeing Jerry Garcia band, and there were only like 300 people there. It was a really small crowd, and Trey and I were really close. I don't know whether we were third row or second row or maybe even first row. I don't remember. But it was just mesmerizing, and after the show, Trey and I wanted to find Jerry. We wanted to, for lack of a better term, we were stalking Jerry. And the Radisson Hotel was right next door, and we had heard from a little bird he might be staying there, and then we thought, well, probably Jerry will be staying on the top floor. So Trey and I took the elevator up to the top floor, and I recall there were like 60, 70 rooms. It was a long hallway. So Trey took one side, I took the other, and we started listening in at each door trying to hear Jerry. And halfway through, I hear Jerry's voice through the door. He's like talking to his manager, yeah, great job, man. And I was like, he's in there. And then Trey wanted to give him a gift. He had a Stanley Jordan album, and we lived 2 blocks away. So he runs down the stairs, goes to our house. We lived at 202.5 Pine Street in this little crappy little house, which we loved, but went and got the Stanley Jordan album, runs back up, and then Trey and I write Jerry a note. And it was like a long note, and we have the album and the note, and Trey's like, you talk. I'm like, no, you talk. No, you talk. I'm like, oh, okay. So I knocked on the door. Jerry, we don't want to bother you, but we're huge fans, and here's just a little gift we want to give you. And it was the Stanley Jordan album with the note, and we slide it halfway under, and then sure enough, we see the album slide the other half under the door, and the one word that Jerry said to us was, "Thanks." and
Wow.
And it was really symbolic because
Jerry and Trey have talked.
Yeah, they have to.
they did.
Yeah.
But the symbolic thing is the door never opened, but then
Yeah.
20 years later, over 20 years later, Trey was filling Jerry's shoes at Fare Thee Well,
Right.
and that's just a beautiful thing. But then on top of that, what I like to think about is somewhere out there might be a note, that note from me and Trey to Jerry, in the sleeve of a Stanley Jordan album. Maybe it's with his ex-wife, maybe it's in some warehouse.
Wow.
But I am urging anyone who has the powers to be to try to find that note.
We're going to
because
find the note.
That would be
Yeah.
an amazing
Amazing
thing.
note,
If we
yeah.
could find that note.
We found the
God.
glasses I threw out after the Proclaimers, you know,
Yeah, right.
and I will,
It's amazing, yeah.
through the power of podcasting,
Yeah.
so we can find this amazing note. Stanley Jordan, by the way, went to Princeton, and I remember Dave Abrahams, who looks too much like Dave in Phish lore. His dad, Elihu, who's also in Sample in a Jar, took us, me, Trey, and Dave, to see Stanley Jordan play, and Stanley Jordan must have been 20.
Wow.
And he had just pioneered like this amazing two-hand guitar where he's playing like the bass like a piano with his left hand all over the guitar, and the solo by pushing with his right. It was unbelievable. But anyway, I saw a young Stanley Jordan, and Trey and me and Dave, I remember Trey just looking at him like,
Yeah.
I think I'm giving up guitar. I'm done with guitar, you know, after seeing Stanley play.
I feel like we missed something. We should have had, Stanley Jordan's music playing after Fare Thee Well or something like that in the post-show music.
That's a good idea.
It would have been the true full circle moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stanley, wherever you are, hi.
Stanley rocks.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, I think we're going to have a debut of a live song in just a few moments right now.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Mike.
Mike.
Thanks, guys.
Back in New York City, what are you gonna play?
You're back in Madison Square, where you belong. Back in the garden, we hope you play our songs.
I hope you play my songs.
We hope you play our songs. Everybody's here from different circumstance. We made it to New York, and we're gonna dance. Coming from around the map to see the show. There's just a few things, Trey, that we need to know.
Mercury is a pretty good song. On Big Boat, we thought it belonged. It didn't make it on, but let me lie. Got on 3 albums, why Trey, why?
You used to have us sing on stage all the time. In 1.0 and 2.0 we did just fine. We crushed the stage for Antelope in 2012 SPAC. Hey there, Trey, time to bring the dude back. We are both a lyricists, but we don't fight. Even though some people think we might. It's a tough job, but someone's gotta do it. It's hard to write a song, but we push through it.
All right, I promised that we're going to perform a note that has never been played in any Phish song. Here's the note. It's from my wife. Pick up milk, bananas, and Raisin Bran. And the cats are out. Think you've ever heard that in a Phish song?
No way.
Very unique note.
And also, we are in search of a note. A note from me and Trey to Jerry Garcia.
Stanley Jordan album. All right, thank you. All right. Thanks, you guys.
So much fun.
That's awesome. Thanks, Pat.
Look at Page's new shirt. Trey heard it yet?
No. This is live. This is live.
All right. Thanks to Tom and the dude for joining us. That was really awesome. Really like that song. So before we wrap up, we're gonna talk about the contest that we did with in partnership with Relix to give away two tickets to Lock In 2019, and we asked people to share their favorite concert moments in a photo, and you can see all of them if you go to the hashtag Osiris 2018, and you'll see a few of them on the screen as we talk about this. But we got a lot of great entries, and it's cool to do that, to revisit sort of fun experiences from 2018. So our winner is Brad, who you'll see the last image here. So congratulations, Brad. You're going to win 2 tickets to Lock In 2019. And Mike, Mike, you're familiar with Lock In, obviously. What about Lock In is special for you?
Well, the concept behind Lock In I think is really unique in the modern festival landscape. It was started by Relix's publisher, Pete Shapiro, who, of course, runs Brooklyn Bowl and the Capitol Theater, and used to run Wetlands, and Dave Fry, who, in addition to managing many bands over the years, was one of the founders of the Horde Tour. And both of their career paths have all been about creating experiences that are based on collaboration and unique kind of magical live moments. And the great thing about Lock In is there's all these interlocking sets. There's a rotating stage, so there's really no downtime between the music. Most of the music takes place on one stage during the day, so you never have to leave the field and your area, and there's plenty of opportunity for bands to cross-pollinate and have some, truly, lightning in the bottle moments there.
Cool. Yeah, well, I hope everyone enjoys Lock In, and go if you haven't been, but Brad will be going, so congratulations, Brad. So I think that wraps us up for today. Everyone needs to go and rest or have a beer or something before the show tonight, or both. Mike, thanks so much for hosting us here in the Relix office.
Thanks for coming by. Yeah,
it's awesome.
As I was saying before, we haven't done a session in here for a while, so it kind of feels like going back to one of your old favorite venues, which is nice.
Felicia, thanks so much for joining as always and providing your perspective.
Thanks, RJ.
And I just want to say thanks to, we have a guest director today, Kelly Morris, whose work I'm sure you all know if you've seen the More video and other stuff she's done. So we appreciate her stepping behind the camera to help us out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there's many other people who are helping us out, and we appreciate everyone's help and input. And thanks to Jonathan Healy, who helps us get this out there to all of you, even while he's working other shows and live streaming many events at once. So thanks to him, and thanks everyone. And we'll see you all. I guess we'll see everyone around the Ghosts of the Forest tour in April, because we're going to do some stuff around that. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining.